This is such a Pradyuman of Cirrus Research. We've just released our quarterly outlook, the report, the Cirrus Dispatch, the title, Credit Expansion Cycle to Broaden Leadership and Temper Equality Bias. At the heart of this outlook is this debate about what Fed rate change policy will enact in the equity markets. Part one of this, we believe, is that it does broaden market leadership. So this idea about a very narrow leadership, centrally, let's say, allocated towards AI, I believe that becomes more in question. In addition to that, this natural tendency to believe that if the Fed is cutting rates, a portfolio should therefore become defensive because that's the way it's always been. We question that second part here in this report as well. Part one is the laws of market gravity. And really, NVIDIA is nearly a $3 trillion market cap that's got a top line growth that's in excess of about 200%. That's just unsustainable if you go out a few short years. So what we have noticed, though, in their latest report, earnings report, we've noticed that the top line growth has started to decelerate. Still incredibly fast growth. And the question here is there some immediate stop to this? At the heart of this, we think there's still supports for this as their key end users, some of the biggest technology companies, the Oracles of the world, the Apples of the world, their spending on AI, it appears to be unending. And so to some degree, ultimately, the end to this trade is really about their customers' ability to continue to buy into these inventory. In addition to that, this idea about playing defense, we think it's a bit premature. This idea that you've got to play defense when the Fed is cutting rates. This relationship here relates the sales growth for low quality firms across the cap spectrum. And what we believe is that when low quality firms begin to slow down their growth rates, that's really when everybody leaves. What has occurred in the prior 2 years is exactly that the top line growth for most low quality firms broke down as the Fed began tightening. That basically bottomed about 6, 9, even 12 months ago, and that has actually begun to recover. So what happens next if the central banks globally are now beginning to cut interest rates? So we believe that this is a time that there's more of a credit expansion cycle, and to some degree, more cyclicals matter more in this type of backdrop. So very counter to this sort of popular view right now on playing defense. If you take this further and look at top line growth around the world, just about every region market, we're seeing the sales growth, the top line growth stabilize and has begun to recover. Earnings estimates, with the exception of China, those forecasts are also on the mend. One really neat observation is that the US credit markets have been quite stable and favorable over the last couple of years throughout this Fed tightening cycle. So what happens now if the Fed begins to really reverse course and really make credit easier? So what is interesting, though, is that globally in the last 6 months, 12 months, we've seen the credit cycle across regions, every region we can really effectively measure in high yield. Those spreads have been coming in for several months now. So this is a very broad market thesis, I think, underway. To put it all together in terms of portfolio speak, if we were growth managers, our growth of the 3 growth blends we run, we would remain anchored around the GARP model. In other words, of the growth blends that we run, the GARP model is the most valuation sensitive. In other words, in a world where the profit cycle is expanding, valuations matter more. Similarly, in the value region, that we're not in a deep value sort of zero to hero moment. So a deep value bias is really not timely. The relative value model, we believe, is the way to lead in this sort of credit expansion backdrop. Take a look at the report, and as always, very happy to take your questions. Thank you.